Yep.
Well, it's 7 o'clock, so.
We are unmuted, so.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, it is 7 o'clock. Will you turn on your cameras and we will stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All righty, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We'll start with the roll call.
Alderman Alder.
Here.
We didn't hear you.
Oh, here? Here?
I heard her.
Are you, hang on.
No, it's gotta be heard.
Okay, say it again, Heather.
Here?
I can.
Try Bruce.
Bruce, are you here?
I'm here.
No,
No,
hang on a second.
we're having sound issues. Just a minute.
Hold on.
I tested it earlier, so I don't know what's going on.
Mine did this the other day. Went back and forth, back and forth.
Because this is the one we always
The
use.
rail attack was the one that worked for me.
Hang on a sec.
I don't know anything.
I literally checked it earlier. Well,
Okay.
at least get that for a second. Hang on a sec. We'll just do a little modification here. Okay. Yeah.
Alderman Alder.
Here?
There we go, thank you. Alderman Flores.
Here.
Alderman Galloway.
Here.
Alderman Poston.
Here.
Alderman Schaefer.
Here.
Alderman Smith.
Here.
We have 6 aldermen present. We have quorum.
All right, do I hear a motion to approve the minutes of November the 16th? Please, a motion.
So moved.
Motion made by Alderman Schaefer. Is there a second? Alderman Galloway. All in favor? All right, minutes are approved. Ms. Evans, good evening.
How are you? Can you hear me?
We can hear you. I see you're down on the square again. Is it cold outside?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
All right. Sam, if I could share my screen, I think I'm able to. Can you all see that?
Not yet. Hang on.
Yes.
Sam left and Steve is being Sam.
Oh, no.
Is it okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, we see it.
Gotcha. Okay, so really quickly, I know you have a pretty long agenda tonight. I was looking over that earlier, so I won't try to go point by point or take up too much of your time, but since it is December, I know this has been quite an unusual year with a lot of different expectations, and so I think it's a good opportunity for us to just kind of do a quick roundup and look back at the year as a whole. So we've divided, of course, what we have reported on in a couple different categories. We have the things that the chamber works on in partnership with or in communication with the city staff, city initiatives and things like that. And then of course we have kind of our internal things that we work on behalf of our members and things that don't really have, that don't really happen in partnership with the city or anything like that. So I'm really only recapping and reporting on things that we have done either on behalf of the city as a whole and not just our membership, or things that we're, you know, in communication with or in partnership with the city, whether that's through our contract or different initiatives. So specifically, just as a recap, you know, like we all have experienced, we found ourselves in the middle of some really crazy circumstances this past spring, and we each of our organizations had to really quickly adapt and make sure we had our ears to the ground and were able to be as educated and informed about what needed to happen and what was going on as possible. So We did, of course, throughout our COVID-19 response, we were able to serve as a conduit of information for our members. I know we personally, as a staff of 3 at that time, picked up the phone and had personal conversations with many of our members and business owners, whether they were chamber members or not. Cumulatively, I went back and took a look, and among that staff of 3, throughout the first probably March, April, and May, we participated in about 43 hours of different virtual trainings and webinars and things like that to make sure that we understood what needed to happen so we could best communicate that to our members. So I think we were able to jump in and craft a very localized COVID-19 response. I know I personally either sat on Zoom or on the phone or even in person with some of our business owners just to make sure that they understood what was being required of them and what was being asked of them, and then various opportunities they had to, maybe look for some funding or some loans or different things like that. So I think we were able to quickly pivot to being a good resource for those business owners. But regardless of COVID-19, we had things that we were responsible for doing and getting done and participating in the community. So I'm proud to say we have, even throughout all of the craziness that was this year, we've been able to maintain, I think, really good communication and really even improved communication over what it has been in past years, specifically with not just our city administration and our city staff, but with our public information office. I want to say thank you specifically to Sam and Brooke for always being very proactive and very willing and open to reach out to us and make sure that our organization and the city are sharing information back and forth how it needs to happen. Even amidst all the craziness going on, we graduated the 4th class of Ozark Leads, and we've now enrolled the 5th class, so they have got started this fall. We took our State of the Community dinner virtual, but we still provided people the opportunity to swing through, pick up a dinner, enjoy an evening with their coworkers. Got a lot of good feedback on that. And still were able to be that representation either on Ozark's behalf or in conjunction with Ozark on several different initiatives. I know we maintain a seat on the Springfield Regional Economic Partnership Advisory Council and our Ozark's representation to several different conferences and councils and things like that. So I think we've done a good job. And then we did have an election this year. So just again, specifically, and I put this up at the very top, kind of in the abstract of this report, but we did have quite a lot of political advocacy that we took on this year as a result of our membership voting to have the chamber go ahead and endorse certain ballot issues that were on the ballot. It was originally April and then postponed to June, but we actually kind of took on a more active role, I think, than we've taken on in past years as far as legislative advocacy this year for things like the school bond that was on the ballot, things like the local use tax, and really getting in and being a part of a lot of crafting and putting out the communications about those issues. We did unfortunately end up, or we're closing the year with a shortened staff. So about late June, early July, we ended up, we lost our 3rd staff member. So we have been operating on 2 staff through the end of this year. And honestly, we'll probably continue to operate that way for the foreseeable future. So just want to specifically give a shout out to Audrey Pauls, our marketing and event manager. Anything that you've seen that has come out of the chamber office that has been, that has looked good at all is because she has worked very hard on it. And she has sat many hours with, Sam, Brooke, with Casey over at the school districts and with a bunch of different relevant folks to make sure that we're presenting the most up-to-date information as possible. So like I said, I won't go through line by line and bullet point by bullet point, but I did want to make sure that you all had access to this report. I believe Chandra sent it on yesterday. And then as far as December specifically goes, wanted to remind everyone we do have a Parade of Lights map that we have published for different lights and holiday display locations throughout the city. So take a look on our website if you want to, drive around with your family, or if you have anyone who's looking for different lights displays or things like that. We do have that map on our website. And then finally, to wrap it all up, I did want to say thank you to everyone who was able to partner with us, along with the Historic River District and Christian County. The city and chamber were able to come and have the first of a Friday night series of events on the downtown square. Last Friday night, we got a great turnout. People came to see Santa, the shops were open late, and folks were holiday shopping. So that has turned into a really great partnership that we're hopeful will continue even for future years. So what questions do you have for me?
Any questions of Ms. Evans? Apparently not.
Bruce,
Bruce, your hand, I can hardly see it above. Yes. Go ahead.
Yeah. Do you have any feedback in terms of how the pandemic is impacting businesses now?
So there are several, it kind of depends on industry. I know even still, there's still some supply chain issues for people like, manufacturers sometimes are still having issues getting the materials and parts they need. I know I've spoken, for example, with Lambert's Cafe, one of our, if not the largest restaurant in town. They, for a while, were experiencing some supply chain issues with supplies, whether it was actual food ingredients or, gloves or whatever equipment they needed to continue their operations. So the last that I spoke with them, which was about a month ago, they said things were getting better than it was. But the things that pop into my mind are restaurant and food service industry, and then manufacturing and auto sales specifically. I know I've spoken with Ozark Chevrolet, spoke with John over at Youngblood just a little bit, and I know they have experienced and continue even to experience some slowdowns in making sure they have the inventory that they want to be able to have. But overall, fortunately, I know you all know very unfortunately, we did have some businesses here in town who ended up closing and ceased operations. But I think because our economy is as diverse as it is, and we're not necessarily a city that's reliant on one very particular industry that we live and die by, I think overall as a whole, we've been able to hang on better than many other communities our similar size and population have.
Thank you.
Any other questions? I've got one, Anna. I drove by Youngblood, their dealership today, and there's a sign out in front that says, "Welcome to a brand new James River Dodge Jeep." Have they changed their name?
Youngblood has actually sold the Jeep portion of the dealership to
Really?
Tri-Lakes Motors. Yep.
Just the Jeep side?
Just the Jeep side. So all of the Nissan, Kia, whatever all they offer in the Springfield area, they still have and still operate, but specifically the Jeep dealership has been purchased. So that actually has another owner. And that's a recent one.
Well, the Jeep and the Dodge people shared the building. So does Tri-Lakes, did they just buy the Jeep side and Youngblood still is going to do Dodge? I'm just curious.
My understanding through an email from John is that Youngblood, the company, is no longer going to be operating in that location, that's all going to be James River Jeep. But, and Andrea, I see you're on this call. Have you heard anything that I have not heard? But that came to me in an email from Mr. Whitaker at Youngblood.
No, I haven't spoken to them. So I really wasn't sure what the arrangement was or which brands will retain. But it was also they're staying in the region with the other Springfield brands that you mentioned.
Right.
Well,
So
I hope the new owners will be as generous with their sponsorships as the Youngblood was. Okay, any other questions of Ms. Evans? Okay, thank you, ma'am, very much.
Thank you.
All right, we'll go on to first reading bills, open for public discussion. Let's see, Mr. Galloway, Bill 3201.
Your Honor, I move that we place bill number 3201 on its first reading by title only.
Motion made by Alderman Galloway, seconded by Alderman Smith, to put bill 3201 on its first reading. All in favor? Ms. Galloway.
An ordinance of the City of Ozark, Missouri, authorizing the city to enter into a contract with Greer Dirtworks LLC for utility boring services for public works.
Okay, Mr. McCart, would you like to take that one?
Yes. The city of Ozark was had a contract with a prior boring company. That contract has expired. So we went back out for RFPs and Greer Dirt Works came back as a low bidder for it. And we utilize them for projects that we do internally where we can't open cut roads and things like that nature. So we utilize their equipment and their services in those instances. So if you have any questions.
All right, yes, Mr. Poston.
And Mr. McCart, this is not about the contract specifically, but about boring in general. Did we ever put in place regs that specify when we will and will not cut a street?
So what that is there's not necessarily anything in the design standards. It just is up to the staff, depending on how old the street is. And then if we feel that it can be put back in prior conditions or better conditions. If not, then we require a boring. That's just for the city of Ozark standards. Now, MoDOT and OSRD, if it's their street, we require whoever that is to go and talk with them, and they have their own standards that they have to meet.
I'd like to see something on that, and it doesn't have to be official. If it's just an unofficial policy, some of these older streets, and you don't know how long ago all these cuts were made, but I don't think there's any such thing as putting a cut back to the way it was. It never works.
So typically what we do is if the street has been overlaid or reconstructed in the last 10 to 12 years, we don't allow an open cut typically. Now there is some circumstances where, things change, but typically that's what we look for.
Do we do that? What is our policy? Is it the same policy for third parties, utilities, Sudlink, whoever that want to cut?
Yeah, anybody, not only like this Greer Dirt Works who would work for us, it would be that way for anybody that's crossing the road. They'd have to come in and work with us, and we would require a bore in those instances.
Okay. Thanks, John.
No problem.
Okay.
Bruce has a question.
Yeah, go ahead, Bruce.
Sure. John, as to this boring ordinance, do we need to expedite it?
This one particular, no, we do not. We will, maybe the next two we will, but not this one.
So we will handle the boring ordinance in the next meeting. Okay.
Yeah.
So we're assured that the next meeting will be a boring one, right, Bruce? Picking up on what you've already started.
Twice.
Okay. Well, if there, Samantha, are there any speakers?
No, sir.
All right, there's no one else in the building tonight to speak to any of these, so we will just carry this over to the next meeting. All right, Bill 3202, Mr. Galloway.
Your Honor, I move that we place bill number 3202 on its first reading by title only.
Motion made by Alderman Galloway, seconded by Alderman Smith to put Bill 3202 on its first reading by title only. All in favor? Ms. Galloway.
An ordinance of the city of Ozark, Missouri, authorizing the city to enter into a contract with Darrell Mortec Construction Incorporated for general contractor construction services for public works.
Okay, Mr. McCart.
Yeah, so just like the previous bill that was read, this is another contract that we had that we went back out for RFPs. We utilize general contracting whenever we do not have the equipment in-house to perform the work, or in case of emergency situations where we can't get to something because of other obligations that the city crews may have. And we divide this up between two general contractors depending on the work at hand. This is one of the general contractors. We already had a contract with them for the last 12 months, and that contract has since expired. And we're just looking to get under contract with them again.
Okay, any comments from the board or questions? Okay, hearing none, there is no one else to speak to this. So, Mr. Galloway, we've been informed that they would like to have it expedited, so you're up.
Your Honor, I move that we place bill number 3202 on its second reading by title only.
Motion made by Alderman Galloway, seconded by Alderman Smith to put Bill 3202 on its second reading by title only. All in favor? Ms. Callaway?
An ordinance of the City of Ozark, Missouri, authorizing the city to enter into a contract with Darrell Mortec Construction Incorporated for general contractor construction services for public works.
Okay, Mr. Galloway.
Your Honor, I move that we enact Bill number 3202 as ordinance number 20-077.
Motion made by Alderman Galloway, seconded by Alderman Smith to adopt Bill 3202 as ordinance 20077. Roll call vote, please.
Alderman Poston,
Aye.
Alderman Flores,
Aye.
Alderman Alder,
Aye.
Alderman Galloway,
Aye.
Alderman Smith,
Aye.
Alderman Schaefer.
Aye.
We have 6 aye votes, motion carries.
Okay, Mr. Galloway again.
Your Honor, I move we place Bill number 3203 on its first reading by title only.
Do I have a second? Okay, motion made by Alderman Galloway, seconded by Alderman Smith. Put Bill 3203 on its second reading by title only. All in favor? Ms. Galloway?
An ordinance of the City of Ozark, Missouri, authorizing the city to enter into a contract with Smith & Edwards Construction Incorporated for general contractor construction services for public works.
All right, Mr. Galloway?
Your Honor, I move that we place Bill number 3203. Wait a minute, we do second
We're ready
reading?
to enact it.
Oh, we're going to enact it. I move that we enact Bill number 3203 as ordinance number 20-078.
Have we not done that?
We didn't discuss that. We did the one for Darrell Mortec, then this is almost identical for Smith and Edwards.
Okay, a point of order here. The city clerk has reminded me that we didn't discuss this. We put it on its first reading and we went straight, apparently I went straight to a second reading. So before we do that second reading, are there any comments or questions of Mr. McCart on this bill? Okay, hearing none, let's proceed to the second reading. Mr. Galloway, would you just do that over, please?
Sure. I move that we place Bill number 3203 on its second reading by title only.
Okay, motion made by Alderman Galloway, seconded by Alderman Flores to put Bill 3203 on its second reading by title and description. All in favor? All right, Ms. Callaway.
An ordinance of the City of Ozark, Missouri, authorizing the city to enter into a contract with Smith & Edwards Construction Incorporated for general contractor construction services for public works.
All right, Mr. Galloway.
Your Honor, I move that we enact Bill number 3203 as ordinance number 20-078.
Good here, second, Mr. Poston. All right, motion's been made by Alderman Galloway, seconded by Alderman Poston to adopt Bill 3203 as ordinance 20-078. Roll call vote, please.
Alderman Alder,
Aye.
Alderman Poston,
Aye.
Alderman Smith,
Aye.
Alderman Schaefer,
Aye.
Alderman Flores,
Aye.
Alderman Galloway.
Aye.
We have 6 aye votes, motion carries.
Okay, Mr. Smith, ordinance 3204.
Thank you, Your Honor. I move that we place Bill number 3204 on its first reading by title and description only, please.
Motion made by Alderman Smith, seconded by Alderman Poston to put Bill 3204 on its first reading. All in favor? All right, Ms. Callaway.
An ordinance adopting a budget for the City of Ozark, Missouri for the 2021 fiscal year.
Okay, Mr. Childers.
Okay, well, the city administration and the finance department are bringing forth the proposed 2021 budget. We've had several discussions about this, obviously, with all of our department heads who have submitted the necessary items for the budget. We've also met one-on-one with the Board of Alderman and the liaisons of the departments for which these budget funds are being proposed. So I, the city administrator, am pleased to bring forward to you a balanced budget that will end with carryovers expected for next year. Certainly, these are things that are anticipated, and we never know what's going to happen in year to year. But I'm very proud of the budget work that we've done this year, and certainly looking forward to the exciting projects that we're going to be able to do in 2021. And I'll be happy to entertain any questions that you may have.
Mr. Schaefer.
Steve, this is really more about this past year, but from what I can tell, tax revenues increased this year compared to last year.
Yeah, sales tax revenue was actually up just a bit from what we had projected it. Yes.
But we gathered more taxes this year than we did last year from the citizens of Ozark.
Yeah, basically the general sales tax. Well, I shouldn't say general. The sales tax for the city of Ozark did increase this year over what we received last year. Yes, sir.
And that's even, I mean, including the COVID shutdown and the travel restrictions, all those things that we had expected to lose more revenue, but it didn't really turn out that way.
No, it really didn't. I mean, I don't know exactly what it was. I think, obviously, I think being a bedroom community where a lot of people, or 75 to 80% of our population leaves every day to go to work, where they spend their money, majority of their money either online or in Springfield, where their place of work is. I think it made a big difference. I think the stay-at-home order kept people here in Ozark. I think that it allowed for them to shop local. And I think we actually saw a greater presence of shopping local because of the pandemic. Certainly not what we had expected the impact of that to be, but it worked out possibly in our favor. Now, obviously, I don't have any facts to be able to point to tell you that that's exactly the way it happened. But certainly during the day, our daytime population was greater than what it normally is because of the folks that were not traveling to work outside of the city of Ozark.
And then with the loss of the use tax, or the failure of it to pass, and we had lost it from previous years, we've still seen an increase in revenues, even though we're not exercising a sales tax, a use tax.
Yeah, I mean, there's a slight increase. We're only projecting for a flat increase over what the realities of this year were for next year, just to be conservative. We really don't know what's going to happen. I can tell you that I don't think that we're going to see significant increases in our sales tax if COVID goes away and the economy continues to do well. I would expect people to go back to business as usual, and travel will continue to move on. We'll probably go back to what we were projecting in the beginning, where more people are continuing to shop online. We know that. I think I've seen reports of anywhere between 500 to 700% increases in online shopping. Be that as it may, I think that the overall long-term trend is going to be that if retail is no longer going to be opening new stores the way that it did in the past, then I don't think that our projection of how online shopping is going to impact us long-term has really changed. But I do think that in this year that we saw the pandemic, I think that there was some short-term gain from the people that simply not leaving Ozark and shopping local. So I think that the use tax, if you would ask me, is still a very pivotal tipping point that Ozark is going to have to decide what they want to do with. Our voters will have to decide what types of quality of life amenities they want, and parks, public safety, those types of things. But we'll see where that goes based on the direction the board gives us.
One final comment is great budget. Loved it. I love the fact that last year's budget went so well for us, and we had a good result. And appreciate all the hard work you guys do. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Alderman Schaefer. We appreciate that.
All right, Mr. Poston.
Excuse me, yes, sir. I've got a couple things, but since we're reading tea leaves on the use tax, I'm going to add my 2 cents. I don't want to be this board to get lulled to sleep by a false sense of security. revenue went up because more people are moving into this town and prices are going up. So we're going to see a rise in revenue, but that rise in revenue doesn't reflect the reality that we're behind and not getting ahead. We are still behind on all sorts of things. Every single plan that we have done in the last 5 years is behind, all of them. So an increase in revenue does not mean we've actually gained anything. We're still barely holding on. And to that point, I had a couple items in here that I wanted to mention. I didn't see them in here, so if I missed them, please somebody correct me. I feel like one of the most amazing things staff's done this year is come up with 2 grants that will effectively allow the city to buy and forever preserve Garrison Springs. I didn't see any money in this budget allocated towards Garrison Springs. Am I wrong about that?
Sam, you want to take that?
Sorry, Nathan, I know you can't see me very well.
I see in the corner
That's because
now.
it's not, it isn't done yet. We'll have to come back with an amendment. I didn't want to just put a number out there and then have to come back and amend it. Until we know what the appraisal fee is, we won't know what we're gonna have to put towards that. So there's no way to even take a stab in the dark. I could be $100,000 off. So it wasn't worth it. It would have been worth it to bring forward a budget amendment.
So if I understand you right, if this goes through and we got to throw a little cash in the kitty, we've got to go find whatever out of all these other lines. We've set nothing aside. We've allocated, we've earmarked nothing for Garrison Springs purchase.
No, that's not true. There is some funding in the parks budget. And so, no, it isn't going to come from anywhere. It's going to come from the parks budget unless it's some astronomical amount that, we wouldn't have, but we'd have to ask for your permission anyway, based off of what the price is. Do you want to pay this price? So we're getting closer, but we're not there yet. So
is there any money set aside for the maintenance of Garrison Springs?
we have been maintaining it as a lease for a while. So the answer is yes, we can maintain it because we have been maintaining it as we've been leasing it.
Okay. Staying on parks again, I've been pretty proud of staff. The effort they put forward, basically going hat in hand, begging for money to build a new playground. I don't remember the last time we built the playground. So have we allocated any money to the accessible park that we're building at Grubauer?
No, not yet. Well, that's not exactly true. We did put some funding in the budget for a bathroom out there. So there is some funding in there for a bathroom at the Neil and Betty Grubauer.
But nothing for the playground itself?
No, not at this time.
I believe that was one of the projects that were identified in the use tax proposal, was it not, Sam?
Yes, sir.
That was one of the ones that did not get supported by the citizens.
Okay, and I get that. I guess one of my questions, I mean, since I'm going to stay on parks, I got some other questions, but since we're still on parks, we also know that parks and trails are the number one things that the residents have asked us to spend money on. And so I don't think you meant to say this, but so I'm asking you to clarify that unless we pass a use tax, we're not going to do new playgrounds?
No, I think that, I think if you're referring to the park master plan and the park survey, then those are the options that we're giving to the citizens to answer. What do you want us to spend money on in form of parks and recreation? I think that if you were to look at the surveys that we've done over a period of time across the city, I think parks and trails and public safety, and there's various other different things that the citizens have said they would like to see happen, even an animal control facility and different things like that. So it just depends on where you rank those and the level of importance. Certainly, if building parks and identifying identifying capital improvement projects and prioritizing that is what the Board of Aldermen wants to do, then simply the Board of Aldermen could pull that money from somewhere else and dedicate it towards parks. We don't own Garrison Springs yet, and we don't know if we're going to own Garrison Springs. We've been offered these 2 grants, and we've gotten those grants, but we do not own Garrison Springs. I want to make sure everybody that's listening on this screen knows that. we don't know that we're going to own Garrison Springs. That is still in process. So we haven't budgeted anything for an asset that we don't own yet. As far as the playgrounds, it may cost $150,000, $200,000, $300,000 to build the inclusive playground. The destination playground that we proposed in the front of the OC, I think was $1 million. So even if you were to budget money for these things, you would fall far, far short of being able to accomplish your playground objectives, because those capital improvement projects are extremely large. You could start building up a fund or something for that if that's what you decided to do. But it would take you some time to get there. With regards to trails, the city of Ozark has maximized its ability to be able to get grants through the Ozark Transportation Organization and the Missouri Department of Transportation and the Transportation Alternative Program. All of those are transportation programs using federal funds to be able to build trails. I will also call the recreational trail program to the Missouri Department of Conservation. So we've done an amazing job of leveraging local sales tax dollars that were approved by the 2017 sales tax, transportation sales tax, to leverage well over $500,000, if not really more, like with box culverts and everything, well over $1 million in trail and pedestrian trail improvements. So we are exceeding our expectations for trail building, pedestrian improvements, underpasses. We've blown that out of the water. But no, we don't have a dedicated line item for playgrounds. I wanted to give you the whole story.
Sure.
Playgrounds is not something that we have dedicated line item for, outside of what Samantha may have put in a parks budget or something.
My concern is so trails are a little bit different in that we can, and we did tell the public that we intended to use part of the transportation tax for trails, which we've done. And staff has been, once again, amazing at bringing back state and federal dollars to build those trails. But we're not really making any efforts on playgrounds. And so if you take federal money out of the equation, we're not building trails or parks. We're only building trails right now because of state and federal money. We're not really putting in a ton of this locally. We're doing it to match grants and make sure we get the grants, but the bulk of the money isn't coming from us. And the survey for the comp plan, residents said that their number one concern was safety, public safety. That was number one. And we've made great strides to increase pay, et cetera, and kind of shore up public safety. The second thing they said was that as soon as public safety is taken care of, their number one priority was parks. And I don't think the budget reflects that. My concern is if you take federal and state dollars out of this equation, we're not building trails or parks, none. And I understand it takes a lot of money. We've already been seeing staff, like I said, running around for months, hat in hand, begging for money to build the first playground that we built that I can remember. I don't remember the last time we bought a new piece of playdown equipment, let alone built a new playground. And it just feels like if we say that, or if the residents tell us that parks is the number one concern after public safety, that ought to be reflected somewhere in the budget.
I just want to make a point of clarification. When we originally presented the projects that we would get done in the 2017 transportation sales tax, we committed to spend over $500,000, $500,000 from local transportation sales tax money on trails, and we have exceeded that. So I don't want anybody on this call to think that we're not dedicating the local transportation funds that were approved by the citizens to those trails, because we are, and we've exceeded that $500,000 commitment. We have turned that $500,000 commitment, and we have doubled, tripled, quadrupled the ability to be able to get more done than what we originally promised through the state and federal grants that we've gotten. So I don't think it's accurate necessarily that to say that we're not spending local dollars on trails, because we are. We've spent over the amount that we originally said we would. But that being said, if it is the priority of the Board of Aldermen to dedicate park funds, general funds, discretionary funds to more playgrounds, then that's certainly something that the Board of Aldermen can decide. I just wanted to make sure I let the public know that we are doing what we said, and we're doing more than what we said, because those local funds are being spent in that area.
No, and I'm glad you clarified that, Steve. That wasn't my intent. My intent was simply to say that the real gains they're seeing is because we're being able to combine this with federal and state dollars. And that's what's making this growth happen so quick amongst our trail system. If you took that money out, the trails would suffer, as would the parks. There just wouldn't be that much money going towards it. Not that we wouldn't hit every commitment we made. It's just not a big pool once you take out state and federal dollars. So that's point one. I felt like that we need to start allocating more money for playgrounds. I think it's great that private business and private individuals are kicking in. I think that's the wrong decision to make if we're saying playgrounds are private dollars only. I don't want to go down that road. We need to build more. It's simply time. I've given up on having them for my kids. Maybe we can have some for my grandkids. We need to start putting in money. And if we've got to pull that money and throw it in a reserve account until we build up $150,000, $200,000, $300,000 to do big ticket items, then let's do that. But we need to make that commitment to do that. The second issue was back with P&Z, or with planning and development, and that was the SIMCOG contract. That SIMCOG contract was requested by myself as well as the Planning and Zoning Commission. It got derailed when we were going through COVID, back in March. I didn't see that contract coming back. Given that planning and development staff runs on a skeleton crew as it is, we need those outside resources, especially since everything that SIMCOG was doing for us was directly related to, the zoning and development efforts that Mr. Galloway, as well as other members of this board, had asked us to do, the P&Z commission, that is. So was there a reason that contract was not in the budget?
That contract actually is in the budget. That information was passed along by you as a liaison to the planning and zoning director. The planning and zoning director and I had a conversation with the finance director probably Tuesday of last week. We discussed that, and that agreement was put back in the budget. I'm sorry, I thought the planning and development director had maybe informed you of that.
Okay, perfect then. That's what I wanted to say for now. Thank you, sir.
All right, any other comments from the board on the budget? Mr. Galloway? We can't hear you. Unmute yourself. There you go.
Thank you. I have a question for Mary Wilson.
Mary, Alderman Galloway has a question for you. There you go. She's unmuted.
I'm here.
Hi, maybe you can remind me if there is no use tax, and I'm certainly not saying I support one on a third time, but I can't remember. If we don't pass it, does that mean that we lose sales tax revenue from auto dealers? I just can't remember it.
Yes, we will lose the sales tax from out-of-state sales of new vehicles, and we will lose the sales tax on transactions from one individual to another. So if I buy a car from you, then we would lose that sales tax.
Then how much revenue does that get us? I know you're not prepared to give me a specific question, but just a ballpark.
It's a very difficult question to answer because no one tracks that. The one time that we have asked the local office to provide that information, they indicated that it could be as much as 50% of the sales tax that we receive from vehicle tax. I don't have a dollar amount to tell you, but it would be substantial.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Schaefer? Can't hear you. Unmute yourself, please.
Mary, just to clarify that response. So when we're comparing the two sources of revenue, we're talking about pretty much dealership sales on one side and then out-of-state and person-to-person sales on the other side, right?
Yes, that's
Right.
the part that is, we
And you're
stand to
saying that-
potentially lose.
That those amounts, according to the local office, are equal, that the dealership sales are equal to out-of-state and person-to-person sales.
Yes, that is another way of looking at that. I would agree with that. Now,
All right,
that
thanks.
has been several years ago that she told me that. And again, the Department of Revenue, the Missouri Department of Revenue, who collects that sales tax, does not track that information. So it's really just a guess as to what we would lose.
Thanks again.
Okay.
All right, anyone else? Am I to assume that there's no more discussion on the budget? Mr. Poston?
I'm going to bring up one more, Your Honor. This is one I've been struggling with. It's this economic development line. My concern with this is that these numbers don't go down ever. 85,000 will not become 50 ever. It will, 2 years from now, that number will be 100 to 125. Still no money allocated towards parks, but that number will continue to go up. So my concern is there's some, and just, you know, those of us that have sat on here a while, we've just kind of learned there's some of these items that what worries me about them is when you agree to this number, you are implicitly agreeing to a bigger number next year. And I've got to, that's my concern with some of these. I feel like I feel like there are parts of this budget where we have scattered effort across multiple channels rather than picking something or an area and pounding it until it's awesome. So, you know, it's just kind of an incremental improvement all over and nothing really focused. I've kind of raised this same point with some of our transportation projects. We've now downtown and we're doing some projects downtown. And there's going to be a series of projects that are going to help happen downtown. And just FYI, that's just part of town that's not even in my ward, but doing it that way is absolutely the right way to do it because you're going to get a synergy. When we pave a road, you get more benefit towards the city if you pave, you know, lots and lots of roads building out rather than these little pockets all over town. And there's a greater synergy to doing things that are targeted like that. And I feel like I'm seeing some of that in the budget where we have a lot of needs and we're trying to scatter out the money everywhere, trying to do it all. And I do worry that we're not really focused. We're not saying that, you know, this next year we're really going to dig in and do this thing, whatever it takes, that thing's getting done. And I felt like that the economic development bucket was one of them because partially it saw a pretty big jump. So I'm not going to make an amendment right now. I'm not going to do that. I'm sharing my thoughts on what I'm seeing in the budget this year. And that was one more point I wanted to make.
Mr. Flores?
I think one thing about our economic development budget is that, you know, if we're going to be able, because we don't have a use tax, because we don't have these different types of things, I think if we're trying to build our city correctly and we're trying to bring in commerce and different things that we can build things like playgrounds with or have extra money to do, I think we can't lose sight of the fact that we have to continue to invest in the different things that allow us to continue to grow correctly. So when I look at our economic development growing year after year, I think that we have to be kind of forward thinking about that and make sure that we're continuing to do what we got to do to bring in more business and bring in more commerce and do the things that actually will bring the money into this town, especially not having a use tax or something like that. So I definitely think we've got to continue to put efforts into those areas and keep them going.
I'm going to take the liberty to chime in on that. I do have some thoughts, and I'm not going to have very many more months to make my thoughts clear. So I'm going to do it now. And I'm glad you brought that up, Mr. Poston. And I'm glad that you're not making an amendment at this time, because I think for now, for at least one more year, we need to go forward with this. But I know going with the chamber first, and then Show Me Christian County second. When we first started supporting the chamber, it was a short-term, the whole idea was that it was short-term. It wasn't going to be a forever subsidy, so to speak. Of course, then there were economic development goals that were part of the contract with the chamber, and Show Me Christian County has taken over most, if not all of those. And I think that the face of what we expect from the chamber is possibly changing a little bit. But that's just that's something that I'm not in a position to deal with directly. So I'm just going to say that. But I am going to say this about Show Me Christian County. And I think all of you aldermen are probably aware of this, but if not, you need to know that the city of Ozark, as being a founder, has had a seat on the board of directors from the very beginning. And that was before Ms. Seitz was ever hired. So the cities have decided that the elected official is the seat on the board. So the mayor of Nixa, the mayor, myself, the presiding commissioner of the county, they are on the board of directors, okay? The city administrators are, they don't have a vote on the board, but they, forgot the right word, but they are on the board. They attend the meetings, they participate in the discussion, but they don't have a vote. But having said that, I've been involved with SMCC literally since day one. When we first started organizing, determining what the rules and the bylaws, the policies, we went through just the formation of that. And I know what the goals are. I knew what they were then, but nobody knew the extent of what that organization could do. And you can't do that with one person, and you can't do it very well with two people. If we're going to do this job right, it's going to take more than 3 years, and it's going to take an investment that we have to stick with. If we don't have the support of the Board of Aldermen in 4 or 5 years, then that's another subject. But I think Ms. Seitz has done an admirable job, because she's discovered a lot of things that we didn't know we needed to do. And they take time, they take manpower, they take funds. And I'm aware of the fact that we are in the process now of, I hope all of you all saw the investor briefing, but the purpose now, or the goal now, is to go out and start increasing our investment, making calls on the community. That was put off during COVID because we didn't feel anybody really had a mind for it or had an appetite for it. And so we're not just, when I say we, I'm saying SMCC is not just looking to the cities and the counties to support, but they need to be the fundamental ones, the primary ones in the early years before we get this built up. And so I am very much in favor of it, but I'm going to look at it with a critical eye. But I think we haven't given it enough time, and I think Ms. Seitz knows that. But she has I guess, worked her way into a position of some acclaim, has some quite a bit of recognition for what she is doing, but what she understands we need to do. And that's because that's been her job. She needs support to get that done. And I am not one of those people that expects a 100 employee industry to come to Ozark every year. That would be nice. But we need to give it more time. We know what we need to do, and we need to give it some more time. On the other hand, as far as the chamber investment, I think there's room for the chamber and the Historic River District to work together more. But that's a discussion for another day. I am in favor of the way that the budget has been allocated for economic development, and I think we need to go forward with it for this year, and with not a skeptical eye, but a critical eye going forward. So those are my thoughts, and I'm sticking with it. Mr. Postman.
Yes, Your Honor. I certainly have no problem with economic development. I don't think anybody on this board would. You know, we have to recognize that at least more than half of Ozark's revenue comes from outside of Ozark. Our neighbors in the county, Sparta, Chadwick, Saddlebrook, they all come to Ozark and shop. So it is in our best interest for them to have businesses and strong economies and jobs. I've got no problem with that. The question is, you know, we're doubling the budget before we've actually debated a contract. We've been told, again, and like you, Your Honor, I'm certainly no expert in economic development. I can only do what I'm told, but I've also am responsible for this budget.
Right.
And I've only got so much money. And when we've been told repeatedly that placemaking is a priority for the citizens and a priority for economic development, and I can kill two birds with one stone. I can build more parks and build more trails and get more jobs and have happier residents. That seems like a win to me. I would never, you know, be against what we started Show Me 4. I know that there's an expanding scope of it. I would love to have had the debate on that item before we had to jump right into a budget item for it. And you know, we're picking on this one simply because it is a significant increase. But I do have concerns. I mean, nobody can argue that a good economy and good businesses aren't good for Ozark, but there is a flip side to that. You know, I saw some of the preliminary plans about helping businesses with continuity plans and disaster recovery. And those are fantastic things. Those are things that larger corporations have been doing for decades. I think the fact that small businesses would start doing that is brilliant. But I also think that it would be brilliant if individuals were better at managing their money. I'm sure Mr. Smith as an accountant would appreciate that. But we're not spending $100,000 to teach people to balance their checkbook. There's no money. I mean, you know what I'm saying? We're willing to spend a significant amount of money to hire an outside consultant to make our businesses better. And I don't have a problem with that. But having not seen or having not approved a contract, it's improving a lot of money blindly. And I'm done with the budget for now, Your Honor. Thank you.
All right, Ms. Sykes raised her hand and would like to speak. Andrea?
Yes, just as a point of clarification, the contract has been given to Amanda for review, or at least an initial draft, and we were advised that a contract could not come before the Board of Aldermen until funds were allocated. Is that correct, Amanda?
We were waiting till the budget was finalized to bring a contract forward. That's correct.
All right, then to answer your question, Mr. Postman, or to answer your concern, we'll be approving a budget tonight, and the contract will have to come to the board and could possibly be discussed. Well, not possibly, I'm sure will be discussed more then. So the money is in the budget, which we will be dealing with tonight, but the contract has not been signed. All right, any further questions from the board? Mr. Smith?
I'm sorry, I'm just trying to think through here. So actually, when the contract comes through here, we've got money put in the budget, but what we decide on the contract could be totally different.
Yes.
Right?
Well, that's up to the Board of Aldermen.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I mean, it could be totally different. The board could decide to lower the number. They could decide to raise the number.
That's correct.
Increasing the number for the contract would also require a budget amendment.
Right.
And so that could be done. So with the discussion that had already occurred, we went with the thought that we would establish the amount in the budget and then bring the contract forward later. But you could certainly amend that.
And I think because of the timing of the year and everything else, I think, you know, doing the budget and having the money in there now is fine. It's just one of those, in principle, in general, I would rather we debate a contract before we put money in a budget for it. I mean, in general, if it's a new contract anyway. I understand we got ongoing contracts and all that stuff, and that's just, you got to do it. But just in principle, I think I would rather have a contract before we decide to allocate money. Unless I'm thinking wrong. I mean, I don't mean to be, I'm not trying to be adversarial, but I just think in principle, we got the cart before the horse here.
I think in principle, that may be, but unlike a private business, again, governmental or county, everything is a projection.
Oh, yeah,
We have
yeah.
no idea what our revenue is going to be. We can't make more widgets. We may not have as much revenue in the future because of ballot initiatives that do or don't get passed. And so we're just basing this on the projections that the best that we have. And so the direction that Ms. Callaway and I had spoken to with Ms. Sides is that it's better to find the money and put it into the budget and then allow for the Board of Aldermen to decide whether or not that is the amount that they would like to stick with, because they know that that amount is available to them in the discretionary fund. If they so choose to make that amount less than what is available to them, then that is their option. So yes, there will have to be a budget amendment made, but it would be far more difficult to go back to the budget and try to find the money by taking it away from other line items that you had already said that you wanted to do, and then try to create that money rather than doing it up front. So it is probably a little bit different than the principle that you would apply in your private business, but I just wanted to explain that. So.
Okay. Any other comments or questions from the board? Okay, we're gonna vote on this the second meeting.
Yeah, we don't.
All right, there be, hearing none, I guess we will carry this over to the next year, to the next meeting, the end of December. Okay, Mr. Smith, 3205.
Thank you, Your Honor. I move that we place Bill 3205 on its first reading by title and short description only, please.
Motion made by Alderman Smith, seconded by Alderman Galloway to put Bill 3205 on its first reading. All in favor? Ms. Callaway.
An ordinance amending the budget of the City of Ozark, Missouri for the 2020 fiscal year.
Okay, Steve.
And just kind of, as I was saying, let me get all of this stuff up. As I was saying, in the beginning of the year, you set a budget and you hope that your budget is exactly the way that it was today that you set it for starting January 1st. We realize that that is not always going to be the case. So throughout the year, when you have hundreds and hundreds of line items that you manage in a government budget, there are modifications. Even if it was 10 cents or even if it was $2, one way or the other, we still amend the budget to reflect the actual amount of money that was actually spent in that line item. And so that's what these budget amendments reflect, the actual amount of money that we feel we now in December, and that's how we're going to end 2020. Certainly in January and February, when the final day, the end of the year is done, you know and I know that there may even be a few more budget amendments to rectify the budget once we get that done. So, when we go from the accrual to a cash changeover. So anyway, if there's any questions per line items, certainly Miss Mary Wilson and myself are happy to answer any of those.
Any questions? Next meeting?
Yes, sir.
All right, we'll carry this over to the next meeting as well. You'll be looking at those and see if you have any questions by then. Okay, Mr. Smith, 3206.
Thank you, Your Honor. I move that we place Bill 3206 on its first reading by title and description only, please.
Motion made by Alderman Smith, seconded by Alderman Posted to put Bill 3206 on its first reading. All in favor? Ms. Callaway.
An ordinance of the City of Ozark, Missouri, approving the fee study establishing certain city fees. I will go ahead and introduce this bill. The city, as you know, started a few years ago updating their fee study by analyzing all of the city fees by department. And as you see attached to this ordinance, you have fees that are represented by the clerk's office, the Parks Department, Planning and Development, and Public Works. A majority of the fees will remain the same. There are some changes to the fees in relation to the Planning and Development Department and Public Works, which are really related to changes in due to staffing and those salaries associated with that staff. If there's any specific questions related to the fees represented by each department, I would ask that the department directors who prepared that answer those questions.
All right, you all have the spreadsheet with the current fees and the projected or the suggested fees in front of you, so you had a chance to look them over. Any questions on any of them? And we'll address them to the departments. Okay, seeing none, I assume that those are, there are no questions on those. So we will hold that over to the next meeting as well. Mr. Smith, 3207.
Thank you, Your Honor. I move that we place Bill 3207 on its first reading by title and short description only, please.
A motion made by Alderman Smith, seconded by Alderman Poston. Put Bill 3207 on its first reading. All in favor? Ms. Callaway.
An ordinance of the City of Ozark, Missouri, approving a development proposal submitted by the Finley River Redevelopment Corporation for redevelopment of an area generally located within the Finley River redevelopment area, and authorizing the city to enter into a redevelopment agreement with said corporation, authorizing certain tax abatement for a portion of the Finley River redevelopment area. I will introduce this ordinance. The board approved a redevelopment plan and a blight study for approximately 128 acres in the Finley River redevelopment area. At that time, the property was also blighted by the Board of Aldermen. Recently, the City of Ozark issued a request for proposals for a redevelopment of this property. The Finley River Redevelopment Corporation submitted a redevelopment proposal in response to this RFP that was issued by the city for 56 acres of that area. They proposed to utilize the Urban Redevelopment Corporation's law to remediate the blight and allow for real property tax abatement for 25 years. And they will agree to make payments in lieu of taxes, which are called pilots, during that time. The city issued a tax impact analysis notice to all of the other taxing jurisdictions, which shows the impact to their tax revenue during that time frame that the abatement will be applied. They also will have an opportunity after this bill has been introduced for any public comment related to that.
All right, I trust that you all have had a chance to review that. Are there questions of Ms. Callaway or Mr. Childers? Any questions? Does this need to be expedited or can this be done?
No, it does not need to be expedited, but you may ask if there's anybody else that wants to speak on it for sure.
Okay, well, there is no one else here. It's a public hearing, so I will officially ask if anyone else wants to speak, but there's no one else here to speak. Well, there are some Zoom participants that are not on the board. So if any of them wish to speak, why, now's your time. Okay, I assume that there's no more discussion, so we will hold this over to the next meeting, end of December. Mr. Smith, 3208.
Thank you, Your Honor. I move that we place Bill 3208 on its first reading by title and short description only, please.
Okay, motion made by Alderman Smith, seconded by Alderman Poston to put Bill 3208 on its first reading. All in favor? Ms. Callaway?
An ordinance of the City of Ozark, Missouri, amending the municipal code of the City of Ozark, Missouri, Chapter 715, wastewater user charge system by amending Section 71570 regarding wastewater connection fees. I will also introduce this bill.
Please.
This bill proposes to amend the city code in relation to what we call connection fees but the state law addresses as tap-on fees. The state requires before any sewer user charge or a tap-on fee is amended or adjusted that the city or municipality provide at least 30 days notice of that public hearing. Presently, the ordinance calls that will automatically go into effect, which needs to be amended to reflect that 30-day notice. So the new proposed language would allow for the city to bring forward a bill, and we would bring that forward in January of each year, either at the first or the second meeting, and we would advertise with 30 days notice prior to that bill will come forward. At that time, the Board of Aldermen may either approve that rate increase for tap-on fees, they may abate it, which would mean that they would not increase it, or they could adjust it to a different rate. It is presently set at a 3% increase for each year, and that is established to alleviate the bond debt.
This one, I think we do, yeah. We'll ask them.
All right, Ms. Callaway, due to the timeline of this, I would assume that we should expedite this so we can get started on notification for the public hearing.
Yes, it is requested that we expedite this code amendment.
Okay, any questions from Ms. Callaway from council? Or from anyone else present? Okay, apparently not. So Mr. Smith, we need to expedite this.
Thank you, Your Honor. I move that we place Bill 3208 on its second reading by title and short description only, please.
Motion made by Alderman Smith, seconded by Alderman Poston to put Bill 3208 on its second reading. All in favor? Ms. Callaway.
An ordinance of the City of Ozark, Missouri, amending the municipal code of the City of Ozark, Missouri, Chapter 715, wastewater user charge system by amending Section 71570 regarding wastewater connection fees.
Okay, Mr. Smith.
Thank you, Your Honor. I move that we adopt Bill 3208 as ordinance 02-079.
You mean 20. 20079.
20079, yes, sir.
Second, motion made by Smith, seconded by Poston. Roll call vote, please.
Alderman Schaefer,
Can't hear you.
Aye.
thank you. Alderman Alder,
Aye.
Alderman Poston,
Aye.
Alderman Galloway,
Aye.
Alderman Flores,
Aye.
Alderman Smith.
Aye.
With 6 aye votes, motion carries.
Okay, Bill 3209, Mr. Smith.
Thank you, Your Honor. I move that we place Bill 3209 on its first reading by title and short description only, please.
See a second? Motion made by Alderman Smith, seconded by Alderman Alder to put Bill 3209 on its first reading. All in favor? Ms. Callaway?
An ordinance of the City of Ozark, Missouri, authorizing the city to enter into an intergovernmental agreement with the Ozark Public School District regarding setting forth a policy and procedure for building plans, inspections, permits, and fees.
Okay, I think we've hashed and rehashed this, but through the process, we have come to an agreement that the school board has agreed to. That's the contract that you all have all seen. That's in your packet. They have already signed it. And so we have agreed to it, but we haven't approved it as a bill. So that's the basic explanation. Are there any questions from any of the board? Mr. Poston.
Yeah, Amanda, can you show me, we had some conversation the last go around about not holding each other liable. I'm more concerned about the city being held liable. Can you show me where that's at in this contract? It says that we're not liable for any anything that comes from them inspecting their own stuff.
Yes, that will be found on Exhibit A to the bill, which is on, and then on page 2 of that exhibit, which is the contract. Underneath the lettered list, there's a paragraph that starts with the school district shall hold harmless, indemnify, defend, and release the city. And it continues on. It establishes that they will be responsible for those inspections and other work that they are taking over on behalf of the city. And that was the language that the city had requested.
And just to be clear, you were not, check me if I'm wrong, are you aware of any other municipality that has an agreement like this with their school district, or do most school districts just kind of, follow the rules?
I am not familiar with another school district that has an agreement like this, but I can't speak to what other municipalities have entered into.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, I just want to comment on that. Through my research and talking to city administrators throughout the area, certainly this is conversation that the cities and the school districts have. It's a very common conversation. I personally think that through the work of our city attorney and staff, we have come up with an excellent way of protecting the city's liability and finding actually a contractual way to be able to separate those planning and permitting type functions from the zoning functions, which was originally discussed in this conversation. There's probably not a lot of cities that have a contract like this that lays it out so specifically. I do know that there are some cities that waive fees and things for their school districts, which quite frankly, that was something that we didn't feel like was the best way or the most appropriate way to approach this. So together, we sat down in many, many meetings with school administration and through the legal advice of both of our attorneys, and we found a way to make it work. And so I don't know that any other city has this same kind of agreement with the school, but they probably after this will wish that they would if this situation comes up for them in the future. That's just my 2 cents on it.
And according to the fee study, the fees that we've chosen are based upon what the fee was in 2020, right? And then it says that this can be updated from time to time.
Yes, that is correct. It is established to represent the 2020 fees, and then it will update with each fee study thereafter. Of course, unless we go back and amend the contract.
Where is that in here that this is going to update according to the fee study?
That is on page 1, and it is in the first paragraph, the last sentence before you get to the lettered list again. It says, the parties agree that the fees listed in the below inspection list are per inspection and representative of the 2020 fee study and may be updated from time to time by ordinance of the Board of Aldermen.
And so just to be clear, that language says that if we update the fee study, this contract gets updated, not that we need to update the contract.
It would automatically mean that they would pay the fees that are listed in the current fee study that correlate with the items they've agreed to cover here. So there will be no additional amendment needed.
Right. But 10 years from now, if nobody does anything, they're still going to pay $50 for an electrical inspection. Is that correct?
No, if the electrical inspection goes up each year, they will pay however much it is established to be. What this agreement establishes is not necessarily, we weren't focusing so much on exactly the dollar amount of the fees. It was what work was going to be covered by which entity. And so this agreement set forth based on the 2020 fees so we could get an idea of what was going to be associated with that fee, the amount. But if the fee does go up based on the cost to the city, that will also increase for this contract. It's really just delineating who is responsible for what inspections and those associated costs.
Is there a way that we could, because and I'm not trying to be obtuse, but I don't see that. I do not read it that way. I read that we're going to charge them the 2020 fees, and that if we don't like that, then this board can update this contract down the road. That's what I see. It's what I'm reading.
I believe that everyone is clear when we worked with the attorney for the school district, we were under the same impression that it would be updated each year based on the fee study that was then in place. This does not establish any sort of amount of money that's owed to each party. It just establishes who is conducting that work. If you want that wording to be amended, we certainly can do that, but that would have to go back to their board as well.
Nathan, do you have that contract in front of you? Can you pull that up?
I do, yes.
Page 1 of the contract. The contract is Exhibit A. Page 1 of Exhibit A. The paragraph at the very bottom, right before the letter A, that sentence is what explains that. It says that the parties agree that the fees listed in the below inspections list are per inspection and representative of the 2020 fee study and may be updated from time to time by ordinance of the Board of Aldermen. So doesn't that cover what you're concerned about?
No, and I would ask this, I'm going to ask Mr. Galloway or Mr. Schaefer this, regardless of what you think of the contract. Am I talking nonsense here? Am I the only one reading it that way?
Go ahead, Mr. Galloway.
First of all, no, I don't think you're talking nonsense, but I do agree with what the mayor is saying about that final sentence of the paragraph, paragraph 1. It does allow the Board of Aldermen to update the values from time to time as we see fit. And that does seem to be in keeping with the spirit of the agreement, which was about categories of fees rather than amounts. But but going just simply by the four corners of the document, it does contemplate, in my opinion. I mean, I'm not the city attorney and I'm an alderman. I can't really provide legal advice, but in my mind, it's very clear that as our costs increase on inspections and we have to raise our fees, this contract allows for it.
Mr. Schaefer?
So I didn't review it exactly for what Nathan was looking for, but I did think that it contained a mechanism for the increase of fees through action of the alderman. It may not be something automatic, it'd have to be done and action would have to be taken. But overall, the agreement I thought was well written. I like it because it improves upon the prior agreement we had, which was nothing more than an ordinance. And now we have better understanding. But yeah, Nathan's concern is legitimate. I want to make sure we can increase the fees. And from what you said, Mayor, and what Bruce said, and what I saw, it seems that we have the ability to do that as a board in the future if we choose to.
All right, any other questions or comments, Mr. Galloway?
Well, I just wanted to echo remarks that were made previously. I want to thank the staff in particular for working and staying with this process. I think it is a process that has cemented a partnership with the school, and that partnership, I will remind everyone, has brought value far beyond already in this year, beyond what we would have gained from these fees had they been implemented this year. And that's the thing about a partnership. It's the future that you look to and the values you can bring in the future. And with our interests aligned on city improvements, I think this is a terrific step in that partnership.
Any further questions? Well, we've batted this thing around for several months and spent a lot of time on getting where we are, and I'd like to put it to bed. So I suggest we expedite this, Mr. Smith.
I agree, Your Honor. I move that we place Bill 3209 on its second reading by title and description only, please.
Motion made by Alderman Smith, seconded by Alderman Flores to put Bill 3209 on its second and final reading by title only. All in favor? Ms. Galloway?
An ordinance of the City of Ozark, Missouri, authorizing the city to enter into an intergovernmental agreement with the Ozark Public School District regarding setting forth a policy and procedure for building plans, inspections, permits, and fees.
Okay, Mr. Smith.
Thank you, Your Honor. I move that we adopt Bill 3209 as ordinance 20-080.
Is there a second? Motion made by Alderman Smith, seconded by Alderman Flores to adopt Bill 3209 as ordinance 20080. Roll call vote, please.
Alderman Alder,
Aye.
Alderman Smith,
Aye.
Alderman Schaefer,
Alderman Schaefer?
Aye.
Alderman Galloway,
Aye.
Alderman Poston,
Aye.
Alderman Flores.
Aye.
We have 6 aye votes, motion carries.
Okay, very fine. Next on the agenda is a resolution for the Planning and Zoning Commission. Mr. Poston.
Yes, Your Honor, I move that we read Resolution 1952.
There a motion made by Alderman Poston, seconded by Alderman Smith to read Resolution 1952. All in favor? Ms. Galloway.
A resolution by the Board of Aldermen of the City of Ozark, Missouri, approving one new appointment to the Planning and Zoning Commission.
Okay, let me make just a short explanation here. It is my job, as you all know, to make the appointment, but I have a sort of an understanding with the commissioner or chairman of the P&Z Commission branch that he have a chance to interview all of the potential or a potential candidate and talk to them about the importance of preparation, attendance, check their qualifications, just to be satisfied that it's the right person for the vacancy. And he has done that. And so I can feel very comfortable in saying that he has asked us to go ahead with this appointment. So having said that, Mr. Smith? Oh, Mr.
Fine, Your
Poston.
Honor. Your Honor, I move that we adopt Resolution 1952.
Motion made by Alderman Poston, seconded by Alderman Smith to adopt Resolution 1952. All in favor? All right, thank you very much. All right, second reading bills. Mr. Galloway. You're muted. There you go.
Your Honor, thank you. Your Honor, I move that we place Bill number 3199 on its second reading by title only.
Motion made by Alderman Galloway, seconded by Alderman Smith to put Bill 3199 on its second reading by title only. All in favor? Ms. Galloway?
An ordinance of the City of Ozark, Missouri, authorizing the city to enter into a contract with DNS Equipment LLC for wastewater treatment chemicals.
Any further questions or comments? Okay, Mr. Galloway.
Yes, Your Honor. I don't want to waste any time. I'm going to move that we adopt Bill number 3199 as ordinance number 20-080.
081.
Oh, 081.
Right. All right. Motion made by Alderman Galloway, seconded by Alderman Smith to adopt Bill 3199 as ordinance 20081. Roll call vote, please.
Alderman Galloway,
Aye.
Alderman Alder,
Aye.
Alderman Smith,
Aye.
Alderman Flores,
Aye.
Alderman Poston,
Aye.
Alderman Schaefer.
Aye.
We have 6 aye votes, motion carries.
Okay, Mr. Childers, report.
Really the only report that I had, you all have seen, and I am pleased to bring it up again. A very important decision was made this week, one that you've been asking me to do for probably the last 4 years, and that is to find some support for the administrative office of the city administrator. And I am pleased to announce again on this call, as you already saw during a press release, that I created the position of assistant city administrator, and Miss Samantha Payne was promoted to that position. Samantha has proven herself over and over again and is certainly a leader amongst the employees. certainly supports all the departments. And I look forward to her in that role. And I just want to say congratulations to Samantha for that new position. And that's all I really had under my category.
Kind of under that same thing, but different. We Chief Arnold is out of town at a police chief's conference, and his captain, the deputy police chief, is here tonight. And so, yeah, go ahead. Do that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Hey,
Okay.
there's
So Captain Derek Hill is the deputy police chief. That was announced this last week as well. So, well, there's Justin. Hey, Chief. So just wanted to recognize him as well as Samantha. Okay, Tammy, are you?
No, I'll take this.
Okay, Steve will take the building director report.
Yeah, you know, each year we look back about 2 years previously after we have tried everything we can, after we have worked to try to alleviate these debts. But at the end of every year, just as any business, there are bad debt write-offs. This is less than what we had previously had seen in the future, or excuse me, in the past, which is good. But at the same time, we make every effort to try to not get to this point, but we do. So in order to move forward with rectifying our balance statements, we are asking that the Board of Aldermen allow for the 2020 write-offs as of 2018. And that would be for the grand total of $18,323.09 in unpaid utility bills.
From 2018.
From 2018.
So we basically give them 2 years to pay, and then we write off what they don't.
There are many issues that could lead to this situation, or people that can't be found, or
Sure.
So it's a numerous different situations. But when we can't get to that point, then that's where we're at. So this year, the finance department, who works with their utility billing director, has brought forward the total write-off amount of $18,323.09.
Does that require an action of the board? Ms. Callaway, Ms. Callaway, does that require a motion and a vote?
I'm going to defer to Chandra on what we normally do. I think they do a consensus, don't they?
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, let's just go with that. If this is everybody, if that meets with everybody's approval, just let me see you wave at me. Or your phone.
I have a question.
Okay. We're done with that.
I have a question.
Oh, yeah, I didn't see that. Yes, please, Heather.
Just a question. If we've written off somebody as a bad debt, and then later on they come back and want utilities, do we know that?
Yes,
Sure,
we do.
know that. I don't.
We do know that.
Okay, what do we
If
do
it's in
about
the same name, if it's in the same name, we are aware of that. But once it's written off, we don't really have the authority to go back and collect it. Sometimes they are able to, and especially if it's in a different name. It might be the same person, but if it's a different business or a different business name or incorporated differently, then we don't really have the authority to demand a different business to pay someone else's bill.
Okay. And so we would give that new name utilities.
Yes, we would.
Okay.
They'd
Okay.
have to meet whatever the current requirements are, but yes.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Proceeding on with the COVID update. I think you all saw the press release that went out today. That was signed back in November when it became very, very clear to me and to the mayor pro tem and to staff who were all consulted that the hospitalizations were going up and we needed to extend the order. We typically, the first time we extended it was for 90 days. I did it for 120 this time because I wanted to take it past the election. I didn't want it, I wanted the next mayor to be able to deal with that. And so I thought that was the best way to do it. So it has been just simply extended till April the 30th under the same conditions with the same exemptions. No changes.
Jason has a question.
Yes, Jason, sorry.
Did you consider bringing that in front of the board?
Well, when I did it, no, I didn't because
Not the first time, but the extension?
I'm sorry.
The extension, did you consider bringing that in front of the board for a vote?
No, I didn't, because I wanted it to go into effect immediately. And I wanted everybody to know it, because that's when the numbers were peaking. But
The current, doesn't the current ordinance last to the end of the year?
Yes, it does.
So we had plenty of time, I guess is what I'm trying to point out.
We did. I just thought that was the right thing to do. I'm sorry you disagree, but I just felt it needed to be extended.
This is one reason why I brought up the my previous ordinance that didn't pass, but trying to stress the importance of the board in these type of local decisions. And Rick, I understand, you certainly have the authority, and I don't dispute that, and I still support your decision. But I just thought the board should have an input on an extension, especially the way the community feels about the original matter. And I'm just expressing, my concern.
That's a fair thing. I'm not offended by that. I appreciate your comments.
Yeah.
We can certainly reverse that and redo something if you would like, but that's the action that was taken.
No, I certainly would be in favor of the issue coming before the board for the extension and have the board's views weighed, whether or not it affects your decision. Again, you have the authority to do it. When you've been delegated these authorities, as I mentioned previously, I thought it was more in emergency matters where the board didn't have time to be consulted, but not a matter of convenience to circumvent the board to get the matter approved. And that's all I'm trying to express is I view the board as being the one that should make these determinations. If we have a board in power and we have a board that's available to meet and hear the issues, then the board should be the one that renders the opinion as to what should be done for conduct or rules that are set for the entire city. And that's just me expressing how, I see it. I don't dispute that you have emergency authorities. I just dispute that the circumstance is not an emergency because we're already under a mandatory mask ordinance to the end of the year and the board's meeting on a regular basis. And that extension can have been discussed and reviewed and approved by the board. And I think you have support on the board. I'm not saying the board wouldn't go along with your decision ultimately. I just think for a community that's already so far split and divided on these issues, to have the approval of the board is beneficial to the city in the long run, because we're going to have matters on the ballot in the future. And currently some citizens feel that their voice isn't being heard, that the public's not getting input, especially on the mandatory mask issue. So I'm just saying the extension has happened, but as an alderman, I don't think I'd be doing a duty to the city if I didn't express my concerns that we didn't handle this in the way that should have been done. And you may have consulted with other board members, but I certainly was surprised to hear about the extension. I wasn't surprised that it would eventually happen, but I thought it would come before the board.
No, that's a point well taken, and I respect your comments.
Thank you.
Mr. Galloway.
Yeah, I just want to remind anybody that's watching this discussion that we had a very similar discussion not very long ago. And one of the things that was mentioned is that we as a board have the right to vote and by majority vote overturn any of these emergency decisions. And I think that is one of the saving graces of the emergency order. The saving grace. I certainly do appreciate what Alderman Schaefer said about, maybe telegraphing these decisions a little bit ahead of time, but I do support the extension and certainly don't see any need to vote for it unless, or vote on the issue unless the majority of board members think that it's a bad idea to have the extension.
Well, if the majority does, that's what we'll do. You want to let it go? All right, hearing nothing else, we will go on to the next item, which is a closed session. So I need a motion to go into closed session to discuss real estate.
So moved.
Motion made by Alderman Smith, seconded by Alderman Poston. Roll call vote, please.
Alderman Alder,
Aye.
Alderman Flores,
Aye.
Alderman Galloway,
Aye.
Alderman Poston,
Aye.
Alderman Schaefer,
Aye.
Alderman Smith.
Aye.
All right, We have 6 ayes, motion carries.
Give me
All right,
just a
before we
second.
go into closed session, I need to ask all well, everybody has signed off.
Nope.
The same is good, okay.
We're getting there.
So some of you, goodbye.
Okay, hang on a second. We gotta